So I'm still in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and I'm checking out another case here in this town. This case, though, I think many of you have heard of, and potentially you may have seen the video. It's a very infamous video. It's surveillance footage. It shows this entire event unfold, and it shows the murders happen. So I'm here in town. I'm gonna walk up the street through the neighborhood and show you guys the shooter. His name was Jeffrey Spade. I'm gonna show you his house. Then I'll show you guys the couple who was murdered, Lisa and James Goy. I'm gonna show you their house as well. And it's right across the street from each other, but we're gonna get into the whole thing and tell you guys everything that happened. Again, this case, when I heard about it, it blew my mind. I couldn't believe that something like this could happen over something so trivial, let's just say that. Now, before we get too far into the details, I just wanted to mention some formalities that I think, well, I shouldn't have to mention these things, but I feel like I should. Number one, I think this case demonstrates that we should all be nice and kind and respectful to our neighbors. I think that is hands down probably one of the first rules that I think we should learn out of this case. Rule number two, you have to learn to know when to walk away. When an argument is becoming too much, when it's becoming out of control, let's just say, you have to learn when to walk away and say, you know what, I'm sorry, just walk away. And I think the third lesson from all this is you have no idea, you have no clue what your neighbors are capable of, especially when it comes to being upset or angry or whatever. You have no idea what they'll do, especially if you continue to taunt them. Like Lisa and James Goy, they taunted Jeffrey Spade, the shooter. So anyway, we're gonna get into more of the details, of course. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned those things. I am in no way speaking ill of the dead, of James and Lisa Goy. I am simply just stating some observations, some things that I think obviously we can all learn and take away from this. So the day of this event was February 1st, 2021. Again, James and Lisa Goy, James was 50 years old, Lisa was 48. Again, they lived across the street from Jeffrey Spade, who was 47. Now, to give you some context, it had snowed a ton in this area prior to this day, prior to February 1st. So there's tons of snow on the ground. I believe I heard something about like 30 inches of snow, to be honest. So lots of snow. Lisa and James Goy were outside. They were shoveling their snow off their driveway. And from what I've been reading, they were shoveling their snow onto their neighbor, Jeffrey Spade's yard. Like they were shoveling the snow off their own driveway and then pushing that excess snow onto Jeffrey's driveway or yard or somewhere on his property. So as you can imagine, Jeffrey was not very happy about this. He talked to James and Lisa and said, hey, you know, can you stop doing that? Like, that's not cool. And that is when James, I guess, got in a kind of a threatening stance with his fists in the air and told him something to the effect of, what are you gonna do about it? And that is when this small altercation ramped up to an unbelievable level. Both sides, the Goys and Jeffrey Spade, were throwing insults back and forth to each other, calling each other all sorts of names, and just being absolutely just terrible people to each other, just saying nasty things. video surveillance from the neighbor's house. It showcases what exactly happened, and there's also some audio so you can hear what's being said. So James Goy says to Jeffrey, he says, "If you step out here, I'll knock your blank out." James then says to Jeffrey, "I'll make your life a living hell out here, dickhead." Jeffrey responds by saying, "What? F you, you effing scum." Lisa then says to Jeffrey, she says, "You're the effing scumbag. You don't know how to talk to someone." Then James says to Jeffrey, "That's right. You're a pussy, pussy, pussy." Again, that's just a small excerpt of what the conversation was like, the threatening back and forth. Again, about this time, it was about 9 a.m. Jeffrey had finally had enough. So he went and got his pistol and he shot James multiple times. He also shot Lisa. Now James tried to make it back to his house, which again, across the street. You could hear in the surveillance footage him saying, "Call the cops." James and Lisa's house is 13 West Berg Street, which we're coming up to. Jeffrey's house is 6 West Berg Street. So the house right here, 13 West Berg Street, that is the Goy's home, where they were murdered at. Lisa was killed right here in the street. James was killed kind of in between the cars, right there in the driveway. And the house right here, this was Jeffrey Spade's house, 6 West Berg Street. Again, imagine Jeffrey coming out of his house, walking down this driveway, and I believe he turned, he shot Lisa several times, but she was still alive. And he came out again with his rifle, but before he shot her, he said, "You need to learn to keep your mouth shut," or something like that. And then he shoots her one more time with a rifle. I think Jeffrey went over there and made sure he was dead by shooting him with the rifle again. And so in the video, you'll see James going in and out of the house, and you'd see Lisa being shot in the street, and then James kind of ducking behind the cars, but then being shot again and being killed. Now, as I said earlier in the beginning of this video, this whole event, this whole thing could have been avoided if one of the two parties, if the Goys just said, "Hey, listen, we're sorry, Jeffrey. We shouldn't have shoveled snow on your property." Or if they just walked away and be like, "You know what, whatever, you know." Or if Jeffrey said, "Hey, you know what, just please don't do that again," and, you know, walked away. One of the parties could have ended this in a better way. They could have just said sorry or just walked away, is what I'm getting at. And again, I know hindsight's always 20/20, but I think at the same token, if you learn to treat people, neighbors, friends, whoever, with a little respect, if you learn to just say, "You know what, I made the mistake, I'm sorry," I think that can go a long ways to preventing certain things like this case. Anyway, obviously I feel terrible that Lisa and James were murdered. That should never have happened. They should be still alive right now. Jeffrey obviously shouldn't have killed people, regardless of what they said. Lisa and James were not an immediate threat. They did not have weapons, so he shouldn't have killed them regardless. But I still think that both parties should have handled the situation better, and it wouldn't have led to this. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna head out of here. I did try to find Lisa and James' graves, but they were both cremated, or online it just says unknown, I think. So I can't visit any graves for you, but I'll see you guys on the next one. See you guys soon.